Hello and welcome. I want to read to you the most wonderful poem. It's called The Hound of Heaven. It's by Francis Thompson, a poet. And the reason for doing this is that on my substack, we're going through the Catholic Catechism. It's entitled A Convert Encounters the Catechism. And we're right at the beginning at the moment. But in the last episode, we read the passage where we're reminded that God goes looking for us. And as we were reading that and we were reflecting on it, and particularly reflecting on it in the terms that St. Augustine does, which is the very famous passage from the Confessions that's quoted there, it occurred to me that one of the best expressions of this is the poem, The Hound of Heaven. Wow. Essentially, there are two kinds of people. There are those who've never heard of Francis Thompson and The Hound of Heaven and might say, what's that? Although you may have come across it without knowing what an exquisite poem it was, and those who have come across it and go, it's unbelievable, it's really wonderful. So I'm going to read it to you now as part of an addendum to the Catechism. But if you'd like, for any reason, to join in the sessions that we have going through it, then please take out a subscription to the Substack, which you'll see below in the information here, and come along with us for the ride. Meanwhile, for everybody, we have this amazing poem. Let me tell you a bit about Francis Thompson first of all, because I think it makes the poem even more profound and vivid. He was born in 1859 and he died at the age of 46. He was a doctor's son and he was sent to junior seminary in Ushaw. Then later on, he read medicine at what's become the University of Manchester. When he was at school, he was one of those boys. He would walk along a corridor brushing his shoulder along the wall with his collar turned up. A sensitive, bookish child, useless at maths and PE. Got beaten once for being the last boy to be ready for PE. And so he trained as a doctor and then gave it all up and went to London to work as a writer and had a dreadful, dreadful time. In fact, there was a point where he had a nervous breakdown and he became addicted to opium. He worked selling matches. He lived on the streets. And at one point, he was rescued by a prostitute who took her in to live with him. And he said she was his angel. She saved her life. There was a couple called the Meynells who were part of the literary centre of London in those days. Tolkien knew him and knew of Thompson and thought he was wonderful. And the Meynells began to get him published, and then he became a little well known, but he never really recovered from the opium addiction and died at 46. But he had a mystical sense of the presence of God. And here is his poem, which is, well, you'll see, it's absolutely amazing. And there's really nothing like it. So hang on to your hat and remember, this is a story of how God loves you, how God's looking for you and for his and for your neighbor. And it's called The Hound of Heaven, Francis Thompson, written in 1890. I fled him down the nights and down the days. I fled him down the arches of the years. I fled him down the labyrinthine ways of my own mind in the mist of tears. I hid from him, and under running laughter, up vistaed hopes I sped and shot, precipitated adown titanic glooms of chasmed fears from those strong feet that followed after, but with unhurrying chase, an unperturbed pace. Deliberate speed, majestic instancy they beat, and a voice beat more instant than the feet. All things betray thee, who betrayest me. I pleaded, outlaw-wise, by many a hearted casement, curtained red, trellised with intertwining charities. For though I knew his love who followed, yet was I sore afraid, lest having him, I must have naught beside. But if one little casement parted wide, the gust of his approach would clash it too. Fear wist not to evade as love wist to pursue. Across the margin to the world I fled, and troubled the gold gateways of the stars, smiting for shelter in their clanged bars, fretted to dulcet jars, and sylvan chatter the pale ports of the moon. I said to dawn, be sudden, to eve, be soon. With thy young skyey blossoms heap me over from this tremendous lover. Float thy vague veil about me, lest he see. I tempted all his servitors, but to find my own betrayal in their constancy, in faith to him, their fickleness to me, their traitorous trueness and their loyal deceit. To all swift things for swiftness did I sue, clung to the whistling mane of every wind, but whether they swept smoothly fleet the long savannas of the blue, or whether thunder-driven they clanged his chariot thwart a heaven, plashy with flying lightnings around the spurn of their feet, fear wist not to evade, as love wist to pursue. Still, with unhurrying chase, an unperturbed pace, deliberate speed, majestic instancy, came on the following feet, and a voice above their beat, naught shelters thee, who will not shelter me. I sought no more that after which I strayed in face of man or maid, but still within the little children's eyes seems something that replies, they at least are for me, surely for me. I turned to them very wistfully, but just as their young eyes grew sudden fair with dawning answers there, their angel plucked them from me by the hair. Come then, ye other children, nature's share, with me, said I, your delicate fellowship. Let me greet you lip to lip, let me twine with you caresses, wantoning with our Lady Mother's vagrant tresses, banqueting with her in her wind-walled palace underneath her azured dais, quaffing your taintless way ears from a chalice, lucent weeping out as a day spring, and so it was done. I in their delicate fellowship was one, drew the bolt of nature's secrecies. I knew all the swift importings on the wilful face of skies. I knew how the clouds arise, spumed of the wild sea snortings, all that's born or dies, rose and drooped with, made them shapers of my own moods, or wailful or divine, with them joyed, and was bereaven. I was heavy with the even, when she lit her glimmering tapers around the day's dead sanctities. I laughed in the morning's eyes. I triumphed, and I saddened with all weather. Heaven and I wept together, and its sweet tears were salt with mortal mine. Against the red throb of its sunset heart I laid my own to beat and share commingling heat. But not by that was eased my human smart. In vain my tears were wet on heaven's grey cheek, for we know not what each other says. These things and I, in sound I speak, their sound is but their stir. They speak by silences. Nature, poor stepdame, cannot slake my drought. Let her, if she would owe me, drop yon blue bosom veil of sky, and show me the breasts of her tenderness. Never did any milk of hers once bless my thirsting mouth. Nigh and nigh draws the chase, with unperturbed pace, deliberate speed, majestic instancy, and past those noised feet a voice comes yet more fleet. Lo, naught contents thee, who contentest not me. Naked, I wait thy love's uplifted stroke. My harness piece by piece thou hast hewn from me, and smitten me to my knee. I am defenceless utterly. I slept, methinks, and woke, and slowly gazing find me stripped in sleep, in the rash lusty head of my young powers, I shook the pillaring hours. I pulled my life upon me, grimed with smears. I stand amidst the dust of the mounded years. My mangled youth lies dead beneath the heap. My days have crackled and gone up in smoke, have puffed and burst as sun starts on a stream. Yea, faileth now even dream the dreamer, and the lute the lutenist, even the linked fantasies in whose blossomy twist I swung the earth, a trinket on my wrist, are yielding. Chords of all too weak account, for earth with heavy griefs so overplussed. Ah, is thy love indeed a weed, albeit an amaranthine weed, suffering no flowers except its own to mount? Ah, must, designer infinite, must thou char the wood ere thou canst limn with it? My freshness spent its wavering shower in the dust, and now my heart is a broken fount, wherein tear drippings stagnate, spilt down ever from the dank thoughts that shiver upon the sightful branches of my mind. Such is what is to be. The pulp, so bitter, how shall taste the rind? I dimly guess what time in mists confounds, yet ever and anon a trumpet sounds from the hid battlements of eternity. Those shaken mists a space unsettle, and then round the half-glimpsed turrets slowly wash again, but not ere him who summoneth I first have seen, enwound with glooming robes purpureal, cypress crowned. His name I know, and what his trumpet saith, whether man's heart or life it be which yields thee harvest, must thy harvest fields be dunged with rotten death? Now of that long pursuit comes on at hand the bruit. That voice is round me like a bursting sea. And is thy earth so marred, shattered in shard on shard? Lo, all things fly thee, for thou fliest me. Strange, piteous, futile thing, wherefore should any set thee, love, apart? Seeing none but I make much of naught, he said. And human love needs human meriting. How hast thou merited? Of all man's clotted clay the dingiest clot. Alack, thou knowest not how little worthy of any love thou art. Whom wilt thou find to love ignoble thee? Save me, save only me. All which I took from thee I did but take not for thy harms, but just that thou mightest seek it in my arms. All which thy child's mistake fancies as lost I have stored for thee at home. Rise, clasp my hand, and come. Halts by me that footfall. Is my gloom, after all, shade of his hand, outstretched caressingly? Ah, fondest, blindest, weakest, I am he thou seekest. Thou dravest love from thee, who dravest me. And so, a poem that captures the relentless love of God who follows us wherever we go, in order that at the point where we give up, we're ready to surrender ourselves into his hands. That love that follows everybody, night and day, from birth to death, in good times and in bad, always, always waiting for us to surrender to his love. Well, that's Francis Thompson. There's a lot more of his poetry. You can look it up on the internet. And if you want to join us for this journey through the Catechism, then please subscribe to my substack and come along for the ride. God bless you.